Ones where I'm allowed to go and I will start reading.
Okay, great.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for on the mic. I call to order the September 8th, 2025 meeting of the Yolo Transportation District. Let the record reflect that the time is 6:03. All right, there we go. Let the record also reflect that I was gonna make you a doctor, Mara. Director Vega is participating in this meeting remotely, and therefore all actions will be taken by a roll call vote. Director Vega, would you like to say anything regarding your remote participation?
Chair, and always happy to be commissioned as a doctor at your pleasure. So I will be I am joining tonight's board meeting remotely with AB 2449 allowing this. So I am participating remotely for just cause. And there is no one 18 years or older in the room with me. And I will keep my camera on. And as the clerk will have to call a roll call vote. That's all, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you so much, Director Vega. With that, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll of the Board of Directors to determine if we have a quorum?
Yes, City of West Sacramento,
Here.
City of Winters.
Here.
County of Yolo,
Here.
City of Woodland,
Here.
and we also have ex officioso from UC Davis.
Perfect. Thank you so much. The next item to consider is approval of the agenda. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
So seconded.
All right, perfect. Moved by Director Farrick, seconded by Director Lauren. May I please have a roll call vote?
City of West Sacramento,
Aye.
City of Winters.
Aye.
County of Yolo,
Aye.
City of Woodland,
Aye.
and City of Davis is absent.
All right, with that, motion passes. At this point in the meeting, the Yolo Transportation District accepts comments from the public on items that are not on our agenda and items included on our consent agenda. We do not call consent agenda items separately, but consider them all at once. As the agenda indicates, state law limits our ability to respond to comments, and for that reason, we may not respond if you are commenting on a matter that is not on the agenda. All matters on the regular agenda will include an opportunity for public comment after the staff presentation on each item. Is there general public comment?
City of Davis.
Okay, perfect. When you come up, please just state your name for the record.
Sure, my name is Alan Hirsch. I'm quite concerned about bus riders getting to their bus stops and remaining in shade. Particularly in the city of Davis, where there was revealed that even though they've doubled the budget over the last 4 years, there's still a $1.5 million shortfall in what they need to fully fund trees. This was revealed at the March thing. And remember, this began 4 years ago when a woman was killed in a park in the city of Davis because we've chronically underfunded tree planting. This is according to the Public Works Director. And we're still 1.5. So we need to push that, make sure that there are complete streets in Davis and all over the community, that there are trees that really shade people, because it's the bus ride begins when people walk or bicycle to the bus stop. And trees should be part of that. And the bus stops need to be shaded. And they're still putting up bus stops that do not have shades on the side. They're about rain, not about shade. So it's really important that we should that I urge the past that we have some uniform bus stop standards for the entire region, the entire county, and this is the agency should propose that and help our city engineers. We should invent the wheel once and then give the cities the standards. That's my suggestion. Add it to your project list. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you for that public comment. Do I have any additional public comment? Okay, perfect. You can come up, please just state your name for the record.
Thank you, Chair Early and members. Michael Barnbaum, City of Sacramento, County of Sacramento, and Sacramento State for the roll call record. This was the first year that we as a region enjoyed Major League Baseball on the baseball side of the river. What I have to present before you today is, if you have a copy in front of you, if not, I know Clerk Marte does for you all. is the schedule for 2025-2026 on the basketball side of the river.
I see what you did there.
Thank you. The general highlights, the home games last from early October to early April. But one thing to note in the league's new media rights deal with NBA coming back on NBC. Game times in dark purple, not the shaded or light gray, but the dark purple ones. It's going to be very important for transit operations, particularly to note this, as games are all over the map when it comes to the time. While most are at 7 p.m., you'll see, for example, just throwing some dates out. January 6th is at 8 p.m. December 27th is at 2 p.m. March 22nd is at 3 p.m. And there's a handful of Sundays like April 5th and January 18th that are at 6 p.m. So it's really important that this gets out now in September after they released the schedule in August, so that operations team members can have a meeting about how to best handle the operations clearly and with very minimal, if any, detours if possible. Now, you know, at the last meeting, we had a discussion on potential reroute during the short range transit plan. And maybe that is something to be considered, especially looking at this schedule. Let me just close and make a compliment to Chair Early and members. Congratulations on the funding achieved for the I Street Bridge replacement. That is huge. And I think a lot of us in West Sacramento and Sacramento have a lot to look forward to with that project coming up, and construction should start coming up in the spring. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
And I will take that. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Staff worked very, very hard on it. With that, are there any additional public comment? Okay, great.
Transdev.
Hi, welcome. Please just state your name for the record.
My name's Alex Benavides. I currently work as an operator for Yolo bus, where I've been for 3 years. I'll probably be the official union steward in about a couple months. Operators are hurting right now. Overtime is a nice option to have, and especially at 2.5, but being required to work a 12-hour day, 5 days a week adds up pretty quick. I myself have refused required overtime because not doing so would just be plain unsafe. I honestly don't know how much work is required for the Yolo Transit District to hold a county job fair, but if they're relatively easy right now, they'll be a pretty good time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any additional public comment online, Madam Clerk?
No public comment online.
Okay, great. Seeing no additional public comment, I'm going to move on to the consent calendar, items 4A through 4E. Does anyone wish to remove any items for discussion? Okay, seeing none, may I please have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Director Lauren,
Second.
seconded
Second.
by almost Director Vega, seconded by Director Ferris. May I please have a roll call, Madam Clerk?
City of West Sacramento,
Aye.
City of Winters, County of Yolo,
Aye.
City of Woodland,
Aye.
and motion passes. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you so much. Next, we're gonna move to the regular agenda. The first agenda item on our regular calendar is, continue to the next page. Agenda item 5, receive an update and provide feedback on the future expansion of YOLO commute to achieve VMT reduction mitigation. Commitments included in the environmental impact report, the EIR, for the YOLO 80 managed lanes project. This is an information item only, so no action will be taken tonight. We'll begin with the presentation from staff, specifically Brian Abenat, Director of Planning. Take it away.
Good evening, Chair Early, directors, both here in person and remotely. The item before you relates to a YOLO 80 managed lanes mitigation measure to expand YOLO commute, which is a countywide transportation demand management program. You're probably gonna hear a lot of jargon. Try and keep it to a minimum. If you have any questions, just stop me if something doesn't make sense. So don't hesitate. First, I'd like to introduce Lauren Choi. She's with WSP. They are part of the consulting team with STC for that larger YOLO 80 managed lanes for consulting contract that we have. And they've been tasked with conducting this organizational study, which we'll be discussing this evening. Go ahead and advance to the next. Oh, there you are. Stay there. And let me get my slides. So this chart here shows you kind of how the voluntary trip reduction program, which is essentially a transportation demand management program. So we'll kind of use those two terms interchangeably. So just know that VTRP and TDM are very similar to each other. It's called voluntary trip reduction program in the EIR. We don't generally use those terms in sort of the space that we operate, but we're stuck with it. And that's what we're using. And you can see that it's one of those 7 that were approved in the EIR that the board approved a year and a half ago with the YOLO 80 managed lanes project. And in order to advance that mitigation measure, we need to do this organizational study. And you'll learn in a few slides why we can't just jump into making assumptions about the TDM program, because there's a lot, it's a heavy lift. Part of the scope of work that Lauren and her team had is to conduct a peer review of what other PMAs, which are called Transportation Management Associations. These are usually independent organizations that administer TDM programs. They're also tasked with developing the suite of programs that would be delivered with this TDM expanded YOLO commute programming. And then what we really need to know is what type of organizational structure needs to be in place in order to actually expand the program to fulfill the requirements of the voluntary trip reduction program within the YOLO 80 EIR. Are we good so far?
Everybody got all that.
All right. So now we're going to simplify things a little bit and just get a sense of what is YOLO commute anyway. YOLO commute is just in its most basic. Go ahead and switch or advance the slide. Really, what YOLO commute does is they're a nonprofit organization that whose mission is to reduce single occupant vehicle trips. Single occupant vehicle trips are the main driver of vehicle miles traveled, which we're trying to reduce the increase of with the YOLO 80 managed lanes project. And YOLO commute does that by trying to motivate mode shift from driving alone to something else that's more sustainable, whether it's carpooling, vanpooling, taking public transit, bicycling, walking, scootering, anything, training. So that's what YOLO commute does right now for our members, because we administer YOLO commute and we have members. It's a fee membership-based organization. Next slide. We're going to go into a little bit of the history of YOLO commute because it's important so that you understand sort of the context in which it came and where it stands now. So for about the first 25 years of YOLO commute's existence, I received congestion management air quality funds, federal funds from SACOG to administer programs. And they did this through the management or hiring of a part-time executive director. About towards the end of the last decade, SACOG withdrew those sort of formula-based allocations to TMAs and redirected those towards competitive PDM grant programs. And so that's caused a lot of like turmoil within the region's TMAs, of which Yolo Commute is one. Because they no longer had this guaranteed source of funding. Some dissolved, some consolidated. There weren't any new ones established. And Yolo Commute adjusted to that by changing the management of Yolo Commute. So instead of hiring a part-time executive director, at that time, YoloTD came to Yolo Commute and offered to provide staffing at a lower cost than what we were paying for a part-time executive director. So we took them up on that offer. And that was working, and then COVID hit. Basically, the entire program went dormant. And then it wasn't until about fiscal year 22-23, I was hired at YoloTD to manage Yolo Commute and as well as other projects. And we changed our structure to provide staffing at no charge to Yolo Commute, consistent with the 22 YoloTD board goals to expand the multimodal programs. This fits. So Yolo Commute fits in really well with what we're trying to do from a multimodal transportation standpoint in YoloTD. And since then, we've also been expanding our programs considerably. We do this on a shoestring budget. We have about $25,000 of membership revenue that we get each year. Oh yeah, next slide. I'm looking at it on my screen. And we do it on a shoestring budget, 25,000 in membership dues. We occasionally are successful in getting external grants, but everything that we do with less than a full-time FTE. And so I serve as sort of the figurehead, but really I've been able to delegate almost all of the management of the program to our assistant planner, Brenda Lomeli, who you know is also the project manager for the Yahtzee project that you've seen before. We also have a board of 9 very involved and supportive board members. And with YoloTD donating our staffing time, we're able to take all of that revenue and put it towards meaningful PDM programs. Next slide. And so some of our members are among the largest employers in the county: UC Davis, CalSTRS, Cache Creek Casino Resort, cities of Davis, Woodland, West Sacramento, and so forth. We also have residential members. Capital Yards is one, and we're continuously recruiting new residential developments into Yolo Commute membership. Next slide. When we have lots of programs, you need to kind of meet people where they are and find programs that resonate with people to motivate them to shift their mode. So we just launched a commuter rewards program. We have a guaranteed ride home program, e-bike loan program where we have 2 fleets of free e-bikes that we deliver to our members, and then they get to loan them out to their employees. Free bicycle education. Discount transit pass for our members who purchased a Yolo Bus monthly pass through our Zip Pass application. Next slide, please. Our biggest program, most successful one, was our May is Bike Month incentives. People love that program. We gave 72 recipients in 2025 incentives to either purchase a new bike or repairs or accessories. We won't go through all these, but we've also done a lot in engaging our members. We regularly go out to our members and do promotional events, push messaging, text messaging, social media, etc. Next slide. And more discount programs. One of our favorites that we have, a lot of interest from our members is the Velotrix e-bike discount program. What we've been trying to do is to introduce new programs with value to our members that don't cost Yolo Commute very much money, because we don't have a whole lot of money to spend. $25,000 doesn't go all that far, but our members like our program. Next slide. These quotes just show you these are real quotes from real members, expressing their appreciation and, thankfulness for the programs that we offer. Next slide. And we do, and so we also partner with SACOG and NorCal Go is the regional sort of technology portal for people to access alternative commuting or alternative transportation. And so we have our own website, but all of our programs run through the regional portal. Next slide. Got lots of accomplishments, some of which I've already referenced, but we've expanded our membership. You know, really good relationships with our members. We're getting new membership commitments from new developments that haven't started construction yet, and we're always trying to get more of that. We've streamlined all of our incentives and programs, so there's no paper, everything is done electronically. Next slide. And so that sort of just gives you an overview of what YOLO Commute does. There's a lot more detail we could go into, but probably enough for tonight. But now we're gonna connect what YOLO Commute does back to the YOLO 80 EIR mitigation. Next slide. Right, so remember, YOLO 80 EIR said, okay, you need to mitigate as much VMT growth as you can. It was able to mitigate some, but couldn't fully mitigate, so that remained as a significant and unavoidable impact from an EIR standpoint. And again, this is one of the 7 measures that we're calling the voluntary trip reduction program, the YOLO Commute expansion. And that's one of the 7. So this is where it gets interesting, is because the YOLO 80 capital project is going to be bringing towards that mitigation measure about $1.3 million per year for 4 years. And that's like 50 times more revenue coming in than what YOLO Commute manages today. And so that's a challenge for us because, you know, we can do it at the scale we're currently managing, but we really can't do it at that type of scale. Full revenues are assumed to continue thereafter. So for those of you who serve on the CARTA board, we'll be, you know, looking at sort of budget and funding within the CARTA context. This is a program that is sort of assumed to be can have continuous funding through full revenue. Next slide. This slide just allows you to sort of visualize what I just showed you and the roles and responsibilities. So here we are with YOLO in the orange framing is where we are sort of in the big picture from the YOLO 80 project to implementation. Some key milestones moving forward will be, we'll have to sign a cooperative agreement with Caltrans to receive the funds. And then we need to be implementing this program by the time the managed lanes open. Right, next slide. Okay, and so now as we start to think about this organizational study, the purpose for it is obviously to reduce VMT, but we're also needing to make sure that it fits in with sort of what YOLO Commute already does while fulfilling the requirements of the EIR, and to identify what that organizational structure should look like. And I think this is where I turn it over to Lauren to share with you how that's developing, what programs we intend on or are proposing to administer, and then she'll hopefully go and explain a little bit about some organizational assumptions that we're working with right now.
Thank you, Brian. Good evening, members of the board. Just to orient you on where we are with this study, we're actually approximately 50% of the way done. And that's actually 50% of, I would say, two portions of the study. One is to develop the framework for what a scaled up TDM program would look like, or the evolution of YOLO Commute. And then the second part, which we're actually going to be moving into later this month, is to develop some assumptions and models around how the organizational structure, or how will that program be administered. So I'm going to speak tonight about the work that we've done to date, and then tease you a little bit about what's coming up. So next slide, please. So Brian mentioned earlier, a big part of the work to date has been doing outreach as well as a peer review. The purpose, because we're having to scale up massively, is to think big. the first part, what is the world of programs, incentives, different offerings that's in this TDM world? And we did two things. One was to do a focused outreach amongst many diverse audiences that touch upon the TDM world, from the TMAs that Brian mentioned, to some city staff, to members of the Yolo Community Board themselves, and advocacy organizations to get their input. And we had small focus group interviews and discussions where we really got a lot of detailed information. We also did a peer review where we looked at similar sized TMAs or TDM programs to Yolo Community or Yolo County, to understand what kinds of programs they did, what were successful, what are maybe things that we would like to have, but need to consider something different in the future. So we combined those, and let me go to the next slide, and into different themes. So starting kind of clockwise with the TDM gaps and challenges, that was a big point of discussion of the feedback that we got, from these practitioners. What is missing today, both physically, like gaps in bike routes or gaps in signage, to gaps in different program offerings that people would like to see. Another theme was around then potential solutions and opportunities for where they see these gaps being, and those were mostly centered around how to better connect different routes. How do we increase incentivization? That's a big word, I'm sorry. But really remove barriers, because if, for example, you're considering to do a trip via bike, but you're thinking about your route and you know that there's some kind of gap, there's a break, or you're really unsure of the safety of a portion of your route, that might discourage you from making that trip, and then make that trip instead in your car. So what are some of those connectivity elements that we can make as we grow and have more revenue to address these issues? Continuing in the circle, another big part of the discussion was what kinds of, what populations are currently not served. There was a lot of discussions around rural communities and farm workers, also shift workers who just, for whatever reason, it's just really hard to challenge to serve. And if we have more revenue, are there more opportunities to be able to provide services to these populations? And then lastly, I think this all goes hand in hand, is when we asked them, hey, what is the long-term, what are some long-term options? There were a lot of good ideas around connecting to land uses, integrating with transit more, streamlining more educational programs and whatnot. And next slide, please. So all of that I just discussed was the foundation. Brian talked a lot about Yolo Community, which is a great foundation to build on, and we don't want that to go away or get ignored. So as we started to frame out, the next slide, please, we thought hard about making sure that the purpose that we are for this expanded TDM program continues to meet these different elements. So building out, as I said, on what Yolo Community currently offers in a way that can be scalable. Increasing travel choices, as I mentioned, incentivizing non-vehicular travel or removing barriers, trying to and reaching out to underserved populations, and then really scaling it to all counties. Because that's really what's different between Yolo Community now and what we're trying to achieve with this expanded program, that is really available to all county residents and employees. Next slide, please. Another element we wanted to fold in is recognizing that not everything can be implemented on day. So we took the assumption that things will be staggered, and so we created these 3-phase time periods. So phase 1 will be programs that are implementable starting day 1 in fiscal year 27. Phase 2, same idea, would be building on phase 1, and then new programs introduced in phase 2 starting in fiscal year 31, and then so forth with phase 3 beginning in fiscal year 35. So everything would be stacked on top of one another with the idea that we're just continually growing. Next slide, please. So with all that, we landed on 3 program categories. Excuse me. And it's a lot of building up of what Yolo Community currently does, just at that countywide scale. So the first one is our countywide programs. So these ones are really offered to everybody in a way that's is easy to access. So imagine educational programs, things on the websites. Excuse me. The second one are employer programs. So these are TEM programs that are directly offered to employers, and these are a lot of things that are currently offered through Yolo Community, so it would not be a change. Residential and school programs, again, these are ones specifically geared towards larger housing communities, schools and local communities. And then broader programs, and these are ones that we want to make sure our partnerships that are currently existing or will be ones in the future continue to be connected. As part of the table, you'll notice the three colors, orange, green, and blue. You'll see that that's reflecting the 3 time phases, and it looks like everything's happening all at once, but there are a lot of things that are staggered. And so it's just to show that we are really trying to hit it across all 4 program categories in all 3 time phases. Next slide. I think this is my last slide before I hand it back to Brian. This is just as a quick sampling of what we currently do under Yolo Commute on the left-hand side, and then how we're looking to grow in the first phase. So in the expanded program section is really about increasing incentives, increasing our reach with education. So building up our website, making sure all the information is available and at your fingertips, but also making humans available, I should say. If people are wanting to call and inquire about programs, but also just get guidance on how these programs work, then like a mobility call center will be available for someone to walk them through how to sign up for programs, how to utilize programs and whatnot. That is that slide.
Next slide, please. And then the challenge that, Lauren and her team is tasked with is helping us, decide what is the best way to try to scale up from an organizational structure standpoint. So we see 3 possibilities. One is to expand Yolo Commute as an independent nonprofit, as it currently is, just sort of using the existing structure that are in place with its existing legal status and with the existing board structure. There's benefits to doing that, and there's some drawbacks to doing that as well. We won't go into all of those, but you can see them on the slide. And we can go over them if you have comments later. The second option is to potentially absorb Yolo Commute into Yolo Transportation District's multimodal program. That has its own sets of, benefits and drawbacks. And then the third option is to potentially just pass through the funding to a third-party contractor, potentially another TMA in the region, or some other private vendor that kind of focuses on sort of, behavior change psychology, taking, more of a marketing and psychological change approach to the programming as opposed to how we're currently administering it now. So that has its own set of benefits and drawbacks. And so just wanted to let you know, those are the things we're thinking about. As part of our next steps, we'll probably be coming back to the board later this calendar year or early next calendar year, with a recommendation for how we think, this scaled up program should proceed. Next slide. And I think this is the last slide of our presentation. But so we're sort of leaving you with some questions that, we're interested in seeking your feedback on. One is just sort of general impressions about, this entire effort. If you felt like there was any gaps in specific, program types you think you'd like to see or demographics you'd like to see targeted. And then just based on that last slide, if you had any thoughts on preferred organization structure based on your own, professional experiences, perhaps. We will be interested in hearing that as well. Again, not coming to you with recommendations for a decision, but just more of an open discussion about how this plays out moving forward. I think that's it.
Great, thank you both. I'm gonna now bring it to my colleagues for questions. All right, I'm not seeing any. Director Vega, do you have any questions?
No questions,
right.
Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna open it up for public comment now. Come on down. Thank you so much. Oh, gosh. Yeah.
I'm gonna pass out something from the FEIR from the I-80, which shows the commitment for voluntary trip reduction.
Can you actually give it to our clerk?
I'd like to refer to it in my comments.
Perfect, thank you so much.
Sure. First, Alan Hirsch, this is a very impressive, very nice document. This committee done a lot of stuff with very little money. This is very impressive. I mean, I have some critiques about it. Safety should be mentioned, because there's nothing that will discourage people from using transportation, active mode more than safety. We know that commuter was killed on Road 29 this year, so safety should be part of our program, so that's really important. It wasn't mentioned, that that's really important, we track that, and there's no VMT measurements, no results here. And I know we get free money from taxes or whatever, but we should be cost effective, so I don't see the measures here. I know this is a really small program, but I know it's on page 61 here. They're talking about these red bikes, we're talking about bike uses of 1/10 of a mile a day, 4/1000th of a mile a day. This is cost effective. I'm sure these can be changed or whatever, but we should be measuring each program based on cost effectiveness. And our organizational study should build in cost effectiveness as a critical metric, right in the culture, right at day one. Really important, so we spend our money wisely, and the taxpayers' money wisely. And I mentioned also that we're talking about a 50% ramp up, which is quite significant, yes. But if you'll notice on the FEIR document, we're committing for a 5,000 time ramp up in terms of miles reduced. Because we're talking maybe 1,000 trips here, 5,000 trips to the current program. I'm guessing it's hard to say, but still the numbers are so small. That we're talking about 20 million miles of VMT reduced every year. That's the commitment to our future generations to mitigate 40% of the traffic on I-80, only 40%. We really should make it much bigger. That's a tremendous number. That's equivalent to changing behavior of 3 to 5% of the trips in Yolo County. It's a tremendous number. It's equivalent to basically taking every Davis commuter on I-80 across the causeway and put them on a bicycle. Actually, it's more than that. It's about 50%. You need to find every Davis commuter, then take fix some Vacaville commuters too. It's a tremendous number. I don't know how we're going to do it on $1.3 million. And that's why the cost effectiveness, we're only have 5 cents. The plan here, notice that was the draft ER had 40 cents subsidy per VMT. Now the final was 5 cents of subsidy for this program for VMT reduced to meet our goal to mitigate I-80. I'm quite concerned. We signed on to this thing. We have a moral commitment to future generations to reach these numbers, to reduce greenhouse gases. And I don't see the discipline built in here at the program. That there's no discipline, it's just performative stuff. We'll do nice things and give away free bicycles. I love bicycling. I love free repairs. I love free bicycles and all that stuff. But it basically, unless you change behavior in a big way, the most cost effective that we're going to fall short. And we have a commitment to future generations to address climate change. So please, it's really important. And to put the discipline in early.
Thank you so much. Any additional public comment? Please come on down. Say your name for the record.
Yes, Michael Barnbaum, City of Sacramento, County of Sacramento, and Sacramento State. First, I want to thank staff for the presentation and the consultant for what you provided today. And in particular, I want to thank you at the end of your presentation for providing some options to think about going forward, but stressing no need to make a formal motion or recommendation tonight, that this will come back so as to give us a little bit of breathing room to look over the benefits and drawbacks and make an educated motion at a future meeting. As I'm not ready to make one tonight, that's a given. What I did want to comment though further on are some of the things in the slides, and maybe to take these just as direction back to staff and the partners involved. In the introduction, there was a slide regarding it was more like the organizational chart. Okay, the one on the far left indicates expand capital corridor frequency between Martinez and Sacramento. That made me a little uncomfortable because it did not say Richmond and Sacramento. And the reason I bring that up, and I know there's a capital corridor meeting on the 17th, so this can be delivered at capital corridor at the next meeting. Richmond is the direct connection point for people in the greater Sacramento region to connect with Bay Area Rapid Transit, or BART. The red line is the line that provides a one-seat ride from Richmond, not only into downtown San Francisco, but also to San Francisco International Airport, where many of the Trans-Pacific and nonstop United flights people cannot get today out of Sacramento International. So Richmond is a very important point to expand capital corridor service to. And by only expanding it to Martinez, I think really cuts people off of making that connection. I want to get back to the expand YOLO bus route 42 A and B under the next item. But last but not least, there was a mention of the partners, I think in chapter 4, which mentions Solano Transportation Authority. Yes, that is in the stakeholder outreach slide. And so I wanted to modify the bullet point under page 26 and say, provide access to TDM options to all county residents of Yolo, Solano, and Sacramento counties. And those are my comments and direction to all of us this evening, if you accept that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any additional public comment?
My name is Alex Benavides. I work as an operator for Yolo Bus. I'd just like to quickly to testify to the popularity of some of the programs already existing. I've had several colleagues that I think took a loan with an e-bike from Yolo. I've seen that. I've even asked about that myself. And a couple meetings ago, there was an approval to have a bike path between Davis and Woodland. I think that'd go a long way. Maybe I just add, if possible, if loaning bikes is going to be a focus, maybe consider like folding bike, just so whoever loans that can also take the regular routes, not to worry about whether or not they're going to get home on time. Thanks.
Thank you so much. All right, do I have any public comments online?
No public comments online.
All right, so I'm gonna bring it back to my colleagues. Director Lauren, you said you had a comment?
Yes. First, Lauren and Brian, what a great presentation with a lot of information. I really appreciate it. My comments are probably going to be centered around the residential school programs and the rural population maybe not being served. As you were going through the presentation, I focused on multimodal, shifting modes and bike education, and hoping that those kind of things could be also in winters. Because I think winters is, pretty much an outlier that is hard to serve in this. But with that, I really think the high school, the middle school, and the grammar school could all have some sort of small group incentivized trips so that they could learn how to take public transit. I think that once you know how easy it is to take public transit, you're kind of gonna be a rider for life. And I don't see winners doing anything like that. And I wouldn't want it to be something that would compete with the charter. That's not what I mean. But some sort of like special, like I could see a small group going to the Bohart and taking, the bus and learning how to take the bus together with a teacher or parent or what have you. So I guess having some sort of integrated way to build riders is, the main focus of for the residential and school programs. And then the other one is just want to have a shout out that I have a Velotric bike, but, you know, I like it. Loaning bikes maybe in winters, not necessarily to city staff, but maybe there's a bike loan that could be possible there. I would just say that Winters has a new city council member who is really excited about bikes and doing bike rodeos, Carol Sienna. And boy, she'd be all over this as a connection. She would love to work with you, I'm sure.
That sounds great. Two thoughts in response. One is that we are aware that there is a countywide initiative to develop a sort of like safe routes to school educational programs.
Mhm.
And so we're imagining that potentially some of the revenue that's coming in for this program could be passed along to those programs so that you have the resources you need to actually implement safe routes to school, safe routes to school program. And then the other point was that one of the comments that you're making is what we call like travel training.
Yes,
Where we
travel training.
go out to the communities and we show them how to ride the bike, how to take the bus, you know, we'll bring a bus over there, help people get on and off. So it's like to overcome the psychological burden of somebody trying to take the bus for the first time. There's a risk. If you get on the wrong bus or you go on the bus on the wrong direction, you know, that could be, you know, you could be on that bus for a while, right? But if you had the travel training ahead of time, then you've gotten all your questions answered and had a chance to experience being on and off the bus before you actually have an important trip to make. So yes, we actually do that through YoloTD, but there's no reason why that couldn't shift over to the new program or yeah, we do a little bit, we started. But we do plan on you know, continuing that program, you know, in the next, you know, fiscal year or two.
Fantastic. Thank you. Good, perfect. Director Barrett.
Thanks. Thanks very much. A couple of quick questions for you, just on the recruiting. I mean, a lot has been done over the years with, as you point out, obviously pretty small budget. So appreciate that certainly and recognize that there's challenges associated with having just sort of staffing limitations and such. But I'm curious about the recruiting of new members. And I feel like so that's the first item. You know, it seems like there's probably a number of sort of employers that are natural sort of additional possible members. Any of the school districts would be one, county office of education and all the school districts. Woodland Community College, for example, is another. But also then just thinking like the health systems, I mean, Sutter Health, Dignity, Kaiser, UCD Health, so just would be another, and then Rayleigh's and Nugget, both grocers as an example. So just large employers based in Yolo, that kind of stuff. So just curious about the recruiting of members, and you know, all of those entities kind of are generally seem to be at the table in a lot of the work that we do. So appreciate that. And then the second question just has to do with the current sort of status or structure of, you know, Yolo commute. I mean, which of the what would you say it currently most closely resembles, right? Sort of option 1, 2, or 3. It's not obviously an independent nonprofit, but it's probably mostly it's an extension of YTD, so it seems like it might mostly already be in the middle sort of organizational structure option, and it's obviously not contracting with a third party. But I'm just curious from your perspective, what you think it most closely resembles now, and or what kind of a recommendation you have. I mean, I'd just rather have you say this is the option you think is the best, as opposed to like, I mean, you know, there's more new nonprofit, love the nonprofit community. Probably not the last thing we want to do right now is create new nonprofits. I mean, there's lots of positive reasons for having one, but also could be challenges. And then just, you know, I feel like we'll probably have the ability to just not have to be contracted with a third party. But just curious about that. So those are the two sort of sets of questions I have. Thanks.
Really good question. We'll take the second one first. So the way Yolo Community is currently organized is closest to that first one. It is, you know, it's an independent nonprofit. It has its own legal status. It has its own, its own independent board. The relationship between Yolo Commute and YoloTD is that we provide the staffing for Yolo Commute on a contract basis.
Yeah.
we just don't charge them, we just don't charge Yolo Commute to do that.
And I'll just jump in to say, having now running an agency and having run a nonprofit, this is an interesting hybrid because it's governance structure and it's like, it's tax status, it's accounting, it's all nonprofit, but then it's staffed by a government agency. And I will say, one, there's examples of this that when they persist too long and they grow too big, it can become a problem. And the one I'm thinking of is actually the Bay Trail. The Francisco Bay Trail is actually historically was a nonprofit. It was governed by a board of directors, but it was staffed by their MPO. And this went on for decades. And there was a lot of tension and conflict between the governing board of the NPO that was paying for the staff time and the board of the nonprofit, which had its own ideas about how it wanted things to happen. So I think it's a particularly I think it is fine as a small because it's so small, but because it's growing, I think it needs to decide what it wants to be when it grows up. I don't think it can be both. And certainly because we are the ones who are financially responsible and have to sign the letter with Caltrans to receive the mitigation dollars. We're financially on the hook for making sure those dollars are spent well. And that gives me as the executive director pause because I want to make sure that we have control over how those funds are spent because we're responsible for ensuring that they are consistent with what is envisioned in the EIR.
Yeah, I mean, the inability to receive YOLO aid funds directly though, I think is a pretty big inhibitor. Probably for, kind of continuing on as a sort of independent nonprofit, it would seem like. So, I mean, it seems like there's, I guess the question I have is around if it's officially absorbed into, YTD multimodal program. I mean, you list a number of drawbacks, right? In terms of flexibility, really. I mean, but like, how have you given any thought to how you see those sort of being less flexible? I mean, right? Partnership flexibility, it seems like, it seems like it would still have, I'm just curious about, certainly I get exactly, I get potentially higher staffing costs, sure, public agency staffing, but it's already being staffed by the public agency though, so I don't know about that one necessarily, but I get why you put that bandwidth, totally understand, like just smaller public agency already, maybe not a lot of ability to have the extra time to put towards it. But the sort of either on procurement or partnerships, curious about that, why that seems like a challenge.
Yeah, that's another really good question. One thing that we've discovered in managing the YOLO Commute program is that we have been able to enter into partnerships that probably would have been more difficult for us to do as a public agency. For example, that Bellatrix partnership that we have, we were, as a nonprofit, they contacted us and said that they were interested in doing that. They became familiar with the things that we were doing. And we didn't have to, for example, open up, an RFP for, other, e-bike manufacturers to partner with us. So we were able to sort of be nimble and to implement that program very quickly because of the nature of being a nonprofit, not having sort of the same types of, sort of expectations that you have of a public agency. Same goes for procurement, anything that we need to purchase as a public agency, we have our formal procurement processes. Nonprofits don't really have that same sort of extended process of getting, multiple bids or going out to RFPs or bidding things and so forth.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think, so that all makes sense. There are definitely exceptions though to those. I mean, there's an ability to do sole, justifications on sole source. Things like that. So, I get the sort of flexibility issue, I would say. So appreciate that. Thank you. And then the last, going back to the first question around just sort of the process around recruiting new members and retaining new members,
Yeah, membership recruitment is one of the areas that we don't get to put as much energy into as we would like. Just because of our bandwidth issues, it takes a lot of, Brenda's time just to administer what we have, but we have been able to add each year we set goals for membership development. Last fiscal year, we set the goal of adding 2 new members, and we're able to do that through Cool Davis's membership, and then also through Davis Downtown Business Association joined YOLO Commute, and that they came in under our business organization membership. So any employee that works in the downtown, in downtown Davis, because they're part of the downtown business improvement district, they are also eligible for all of Yolo commutes. So we're able to get about anywhere from 2,000 to 3,000 employees, just automatically by virtue of their membership in Davis downtown, they're now also eligible for our programs.
Thanks, appreciate
But I
that.
do, in your suggestions for new members are spot on. Those are the same ones we've been thinking about, would like to get joined into the whole. We just haven't been able to get there yet.
Thanks very much, appreciate it.
Director Baker, do you have any questions, comments? Okay, I see you
No,
saying
Madam
no.
Chair.
Okay, perfect. I have just a couple of special questions. Actually, we'll get this phone through this.
I have just one I can go
No,
after.
no, go for it.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I was just curious about the funding. What happens after phase one of the YoloTD capital project?
Yeah, so that's kind of like seed funding for the expanded program, and then full revenues are assumed in the EIR to continue to fund the, the larger program. And so ultimately Carter decides how any excess revenue, or any revenue is spent through their budgeting process. But the Carter board is understands that that's sort of assumed, but ultimately they make the decisions on how that funding is spent.
Was a great question. I'm just gonna follow up before I get into my questions on that, just to make sure I'm fully locked in. So the mitigation funds are for how many years? Because you said they're seed funding.
Yeah, for this mitigation measure, it's 4 years. For other mitigation measures, the assumptions are different.
So the voluntary trip reduction program, it would be 4 years. Okay, perfect. Thank you. That's really helpful. And so that actually leads into one of my questions. And so there, for the other 6, there are other pots of mitigation funds. And so the 1 point, I just want to make sure I'm keeping up, was it 1.5? Is just for the voluntary trip reduction program?
Yes, the 1.3 is just for this.
1.3, okay, awesome, thank you. I do have a couple of questions. We heard from public comment that Martinez and Sacramento. Thoughts on that, Richmond versus Martinez?
Yeah, we were just talking about that offline during the public comment, and this came from. Let's see if I can explain it. So the EIR approved the entire project, the full distance. Phase 1 of the capital project is sort of that interior segment, right? And then the mitigation measures that I'm referencing are from the phase 1 mitigation implementation, and that's where I pulled that from.
Okay.
And there may have been circumstances where it was defined as Martinez to Sacramento through conversations the Caltrans had potentially with Capital Corridor themselves. So I don't know the whole story, but we can look into that more and get back to the board if you're interested.
Yeah, I am. I mean, as a commuter, a lot of my family lives in the Bay Area, including Richmond.
Yeah.
It's a staple.
Yeah.
So,
I'm hoping it's not an error, and I'm hoping that there's a reason why that was selected, but we'll.
Yeah, I mean, this was the negotiations between Capital Corridor and Caltrans, right? So,
Okay.
but I don't want to speak on their behalf, but I do know that a lot of the focus was on this particular corridor and how to serve trips on this corridor. And so it may be that they thought, from a cost effectiveness perspective, if it went all the way to Richmond, then you're spending more money for maybe the same amount of VMT or something along those lines. I know for some of the mitigation measures that we negotiated, like there's a bit of slicing and dicing to kind of optimize the amount of VMT per dollar spent. So
got it.
I wasn't a part of those conversations about Capital Corridor specifically, but that was a broader framework within which we were negotiating those mitigations.
This is helpful context. Director Barrett, do you want to say anything on this?
Yeah, just a couple of quick things. I think, so happy, we'll definitely raise it at our next board meeting with, Capital Corridor staff, see if we can get some more detail as to sort of if it's meant to be, Martinez only down to Martinez, but I think. And I totally understand why, Richmond makes sense, and of course, the throughput on BART obviously is, makes a lot of sense. There are 5 additional slots for passenger trains. Up to 5 additional slots available on, I'm not sure the full length, if it's the entire length of the Capitol Corridor, but for sure. The stretch that is through David, daily slots available, and so and I think it may be that may be the issue, is my
Got it.
guess. There's sort of in terms of congestion management, I think that the sort of that Martinez through Sacramento has the ability to have additional slots. Not sure though if it extends to the entire length, so happy to find out more details though, so.
That's helpful. Yeah, thank you so much. All right, so another question I had, I think it's gonna be for our consultant. I saw on the stakeholder outreach, I combed through page 76 and 77 in our packet, and then also obviously have the slide. We, for local agencies, we did City of Sacramento, we did City of Davis. I was just curious, could City of West Sacramento not be reached, or was there maybe not a reason to reach out to them in this context?
So City of Sacramento was selected just because they have, you know, a very strong sort of transportation planning and sort of TDM program. So they had a different context and a different sort of experience that we thought would be useful. City of Davis asked for a one-on-one with them because they're proximate, they're adjacent to the corridor. The City of
I
West
understand
Sacramento.
that.
Yeah, and City of West Sacramento serves on the board of Yolo Commute. And so they've had a sort of multiple workshops on this, and they didn't ask for a separate, one-on-one, sort of consultation on this. We would have been happy to if they'd asked, but we were using the Yolo Commute Board as sort of the steering committee for the project. And that's just sort of how it unfolded.
Okay, potentially, it sounds like, I think I wrote it down, you're 50% done with your, I would suggest tagging in, City of West Sacramento, particularly because not only are they on the corridor, but they're in Yolo County, and they're one of the cities that are going to be, impacted, by this commute, significantly impacted. And so I think there is helpful information to garner there, is what I would suggest. If you have a hard time reaching out to the staff, knows that can be very helpful and persuasive and persistent, in making sure our feedback is able to be incorporated. Okay, one more question, to answer yours in regards to general impressions. Couple of things, on the procurement and partnership flexibility. I would share with you, as someone who runs a nonprofit, that you are correct, although there is flexibility and maybe not all nonprofits get multiple bids. Many do, and I actually think it's just good governance to do that, because you don't necessarily know if you're getting the best bid, and you have a fiduciary responsibility to do that. So I would say I appreciate, right, that there is not a requirement for nonprofits, but I would argue that good ones do. What I would also say, and I think Director Bernstein touched on this, and I've had the unfortunate experience of having shadow boards, and it could be difficult, and I think that was kind of the context that Director Bernstein, that you were setting up, especially since this would be now 1.3 million annually. This is a large enough sum that I would urge us to think through whether we would want to have another board managing those sums of dollars, particularly because we would be responsible for the outcomes. And so I just think the dynamics would be challenging, is what I would say. It would lend itself to being unpleasant, is what I would share. I would also say that I completely understand that the higher staffing costs and the bandwidth. And potentially there is a happy medium between option 2 and option 3, and potentially hiring a staff person that could really support this process of mitigation, because again, we know there's potentially going to be 7 steps or 7 buckets here. I don't know if YTD is gonna be managing all of those or just some of them. Okay, I see, Director Bernstein, you shaking your head. Is that an I don't know, or, okay,
No, it's not.
is it just this one that will be managing, none of the
no.
other ones?
No, how,
No,
what are you managing before?
Yeah, we have the Route 138 Causeway Connection expansion, which we do that with SAC RIT. We have the Route 42 AV expansion, that will be us, but that's mostly sort of internal operational, doesn't, I think, require that much additional staffing resources. And then,
Microtransit?
yeah, we would have a role in expanding micro transit.
So that sounds like a full-time job. I'm gonna be honest. So I do think there is a world in which, potentially you would hire a staff person whose full-time job over the next few years, like you said, it's gonna depend on the mitigation dollars and how far they stretch out on each of those buckets, would be to manage our responsibilities. I do agree with the public comment that we heard in regards to, from the very beginning, setting data measurements and metrics and KPIs so that we as a board could provide the level of oversight, to be able to manage whether, those are being met or not. Like I said, if you shared sort of the responsibility or the 2 and the 3, you could get, because data may not be our strong suit. You could get some support there to be able to help us with those KPIs, and develop some of them so that, we then could start off on a really strong foot. That would be sort of my professional opinion. Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
I think we hit it all. Yes, okay. I know we're running a little behind, guys. I appreciate your patience. So I'm gonna move to the next agenda item, which is item 6. It's an update on establishing a new bus transfer point site in Woodland. I'm very excited about this. This is an information item. No action will be taken tonight. We'll begin with the presentation from our staff. Brian Abenat, Director of Planning.
Good evening again. With this item, we provide you with an update on progress towards exiting the County Fair Mall and moving to a location close to downtown Woodland where route transfers can be facilitated. So looking at this, we're gonna share with you sort of what we have been able to accomplish from February. We're picking up basically in February of 2025, which was when we brought the Second and Court Street location proposal to the Woodland City Council that was previously supported by this board. And this Woodland City Council did not support the Second and Court Street location. They recognized the need to get out of the County Fair Mall. And they encouraged city staff and YoloTD staff to work together to try to find at least, ideally, at least 2 alternatives that were workable for both organizations. And as part of that, there was an ad hoc committee that was established to help sort of guide that process. Director Vega was one of the representatives for us, and I believe that Director Ferris was representing YoloTD as well on that. So after that city council meeting, we regrouped with Woodland City staff and started looking at different locations. One that we had, imagined fairly early on in that process was sort of where we are right now, which is Main Street between 5th and 6th Street. We also looked at several others, including, a cluster around the 6th and Lincoln location, which we had been looking at in the prior phase as well. So there was a general agreement between Woodland City staff and YoloTD staff that Main Street between 5th and 6th in front of the courthouse was potentially workable, and that's kind of where we focused. And when we went to the ad hoc committee meeting for the first meeting, we said, okay, well, this seems to have, the best prospects for moving forward, even though, the city council was hoping to be able to choose between two sites. Really, we feel like this one location, is really the best alternative. There was enough, interest and support and continuing to go down that path. And so that's what we really did between, July and August, was making sure all the routing worked at that location. Making sure that, the courthouse was okay with this proposal. Also, Woodland began doing some targeted outreach to Woodland business community, affected property owners and so forth, and there seemed to be, you know, an absence of opposition to relocating it here, which is, I guess, you know,
Shocking.
that's a win, right?
Take the win.
So we brought that back to, you know, the ad hoc committee for the second meeting, and we're able to come away from that meeting with sort of designating that as the preferred alternative. But we're calling this a transfer location or a transfer point and not a transit center, and this isn't just a, you know, distinction in terms, they're actually two really kind of different things. And we feel like that's important. So next slide, please. So a transfer location or a transfer point is gonna have some of the same, you know, functional, responsibilities that a transit center has, but not all of them. And this was, you know, kind of a point of contention, I think, with the Second and Court Street, was that a transit center, we're intending to schedule, you know, layover time there, a route recovery time, giving drivers breaks, and you know, even if you need to swap out a vehicle, that there's essentially buses would be dwelling at a transit center. The transfer location, where really the buses are coming in, they're dropping off, they'll all be pulsed like they would at a transit center, but the buses would drop off their passengers and pick them up and be on their way and not actually dwell at that location. To riders, they would recognize it as an identifiable place to be making their transfer. So you still want to have the placemaking, you know, components to it. You want to have the passenger amenities that are needed to make it comfortable in case they do need to, you know, to transfer and have to wait for a bus that's coming a little bit later. And, you know, maybe it's a location where driver breaks could occur if necessary, but there is a fundamental distinction between sort of what the purpose of a transfer point is versus a transit center. We still have those needs for scheduled layovers and route recoveries and so forth, but with the SRTP process, we're looking at relocating that from the county fair mall to somewhere else, like along the Route 42, which is where this is really, you know, a priority for us. And so you'll hear more about, you know, where those assumptions are gonna be, what locations we're, you know, eyeing for with that process as we move along the SRTP process. Next slide. Well, this next slide just shows you sort of what the existing local routes maps look like. This is what we call a coverage map. There isn't a whole lot of service being provided here. There's just a whole lot of coverage. What we got from the board in the July board meeting, when we brought SRTP proposed service recommendations, was to prioritize good frequent service over coverage. So we're looking to provide a bi-directional loop at half an hour headways in each direction. And with all of the routes converging at the new location in front of the courthouse on Main Street. So that's what next slide. So that's sort of what it looks like in a, you know, sort of SRTP implementation scenario. All right. Next slide. We are actively having conversations even as late as Friday afternoon with Woodland City staff, scoping what types of, you know, amenities and improvements we would want to make. The courthouse is very concerned about having any passenger amenities on the south side just because of sort of it's a federal building with security issues. So we're going to be focusing most of our improvements on the north side, and then placing, you know, continuing to place the bays on the intersection corners to facilitate, you know, quick crossings and getting onto the buses that they need. The city actually owns the western half of what looks like a single vacant parcel there. So we actually have some room on back of sidewalk to do some interesting things. We're also looking at the Safe Cog Mobility Zones program to potentially fund some of these improvements. So we're looking at scoping the bare minimum of what we need to relocate to this location, and then perhaps a broader scope to you know, really turn it into something unique. And it's identifiable as a place itself. Next slide. So this shows the rest of the timeline from the first slide I showed you. So we'll come back to the YoloTD board fairly soon for support for this location. Then, of course, we'll go to the Woodland City Council. hopefully get their blessing on that. It seems like things are lining up for a recommendation from city staff to support this location, so that's a good sign as well. And then, really because we don't want to move quickly into this location where only one route serves it. And trying to scramble to quickly reroute the other routes to fit there, we would rather implement this in coordination with the route changes that are proposed in the short range transit plan. We don't want to cause confusion for our passengers. So what that means is that we're probably looking at a fiscal year 26, 27, early calendar year 27 in the best case scenario for being able to actually start serving that location as the transfer point. And I think that's the last slide.
Okay, I'm going to bring it back to my board. I'm going to ask for public comment first. Does that work with you guys? Looking left and right, they are nodding yes. Please come on down
Yes.
and just share your name for the record.
Okay. Yes, again, Michael Barnbaum, City of Sacramento, County of Sacramento, and Sacramento State. So as I said in the last item, I wanted to come back and discuss Route 42A and B. And this is the big meat and potatoes item of the night. We've been at this for some time. And I went to the Woodland City Council to support the original location. But I'm well aware from being there in person and supporting the staff and their presentation that the original location was not a good fit for the council members of the city of Woodland. So much work has gone behind the scenes, and I'm glad that this matter has come back. And I want to particularly thank council member Myra Vega for serving on 2 ad hoc committees to help correct and rectify the situation. Want to thank Executive Director Bernstein for putting a lot of more effort into this and coming to some consensus with the city. And I want to thank all the attorneys who make this place their employment home, a welcoming place as a transfer point to begin with, and maybe in future years it can evolve as a transit center as the ultimate goal. But yes, to Brian's point, I hear what you're saying, that this will start first and foremost as a transfer point and in early fiscal year 26, 27. So with that and with all the work going, I would like to conditionally make a motion to adopt Main Street between 5th and 6th Street, subject to the formal vote of the Woodland City Council in October of this location to be the transfer point and ultimate transit center for the Yolo Transportation District location in the city of Woodland, and aptly name it for those that have been involved. The council member Myra Vega, Executive Director Autumn Bernstein, and Attorney Kimberly Hood, Transit Center for the city of Woodland and County of Yolo. Thank you.
It's just a transfer.
Thank you so much. Next public comment.
Hi, thanks for moving this ahead. This is a wonderful, I prefer transfers, transit center versus a transfer point, but this is a massive improvement. Couple different observations. One is the 5th floor of the courthouse will give you great views from the buses when you get sighted there. So you'll have lots of great aerial views of this whole thing. Second is the trees in front of the courthouse are a certain type of red oak that holds their brown leaves all winter. I did a community planting of these trees, and people took them out a couple years later. They call them nuclear winter oaks. So I would encourage, because the leaves turn brown and they're held all winter. They're not very pretty, and the trees are not well planted because they're all kittywampus in different places. I've seen this. It's really, so those trees should be replanted because trees are important and also we should do shade structures that really provide shade and not just rain covering. So think about the trees. I'll be glad to, as a Lorax, I'll be seeing indoors taking out those inappropriate trees. And we should have the tree and naked in the winter so we can still see the courthouse. Because you plant gorgeous oaks in front of the trees, you blot out the courthouse. And maybe in the winter, you want the sun in the warm up people. You want sun in the winter and shade in the summer. And so you have a tree design that loses its leaves in the winter. And God has done a wonderful job in designing a lot of trees that lose their leaves in the winter. Just not this particular oak. Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much. Any additional public comment? All right, seeing none, do I have any online?
No comments on that.
Okay, I'm gonna bring it back to our board members. Any comments? Questions? Seeing none, directing.
I have a comment. Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. Thank you. I just wanted to thank Director Frericks. I know it's not easy to come together, but we really tried our best to quickly meet. And I appreciate all of YTD staff that's worked really closely with the City of Woodland staff. It's been very productive. I think a lot of the questions that have come up, we've answered along the way. And we've gotten some preliminary positive feedback from the business owners. So if you recall, we had some business owners downtown that were concerned. The city hosted a downtown business meeting last Thursday, and this was an item that was brought up, and there were no concerns that were raised. So as the word is getting out about this reroute, we're getting some positive responses. So I suspect that we will continue to get that, and I look forward to getting this done.
Great. Thank you so much for all your hard work on this, Director Vega, and Director Barracks, and again to our staff as well. I'm extremely excited about this. I know that this is a long time coming. I think when we started this and put this on our, I would say our plan for this year, I think we have been at it for 6 years. And so it's amazing what happens when people come together and say, we're gonna get it done. So I'm extremely excited. I look forward to this going to the Woodland City Council, and it sounds like maybe the next step is gonna come back to us.
Yeah, so it's actually coming to the Woodland City Council soon first. It's going to the Woodland City Council next Tuesday, September 16th. And
Okay.
then it'll be coming back to this board for final approval after that.
Perfect. I do have a question then. So are you going to give public comment there, or?
We're actually gonna be presenting.
Perfect.
Yes.
Okay. Did you want additional public comment from board members here? Do you feel good about this? It sounds like Director Vega, that because you guys have been working so closely with Woodland City staff, there shouldn't be surprises this time around.
We hope not.
Okay.
I think we wanted to make sure that this board was comfortable with this being the new location before we asked the Woodland City Council to approve it. And, not hearing a lot of concerns and hearing a lot of support from you all is great. As Brian indicated, one of the things that the court did ask is that we not make a lot of improvements on the south side of the street directly in front of the courthouse, and that we do those on the other side of the street, which is a different than what we had proposed at Second and Court. But we think that it's not a deal breaker. We still think because of the existing layout of the courthouse, it has an awning for people to get out of the rain, right? That it's a public building. People can stand under the awning. It has like a seat wall there where their lawn meets the sidewalk where people can sit. So it's, in an ideal world, we would love to have shade structures. We would love to have shelters there. That's not going to be a possibility for this location, but given how well this location works for so many other reasons, we feel that it is worth moving forward, and we wanted to make sure that you all concurred with that before we did ask the Woodland City Council for their approval.
I certainly concur. It sounds like Director Lauren.
I'm thrilled.
Yeah.
I would just ask that whenever the conversation happens about the route recovery, driver breaks, really just bring it back whenever that is.
Yeah, that should be coming back as part of the SRTP final draft. So in fact, I was jumping ahead to our executive director's report. I'll just say it now so that I don't have to say it again.
Awesome.
The SRTP is about to go out for public comment throughout your communities throughout Yolo County for feedback, and then we'll be bringing that back to you, any revisions based on the feedback we've received. And that's for our revenue neutral scenario. And remember that we're also going to be having a kind of a reduced funding scenario in the event if there's a situation where we would ultimately need to cut routes based on, or cut service based on funding reductions. That's going to give us what that could look like, as well as a kind of an additional revenue scenario. If more money were available, how would we spend it? So those will be coming back to you at the end of the year, along with this approving this as the transfer point. And as part of that, we will be also looking at where is that transit center, if you will, where is the 42 going to start and end? Where is it going to lay over? That piece of information will be part of that as well. So we're really trying to bundle it all into the SRTP so that we're sort of able to have one integrated plan, if you will, for what the next phase looks like.
Okay, great. I'm seeing thumbs up. Director Burks, because I know you've been working on this, I'm assuming you are thumbs up too. Okay, I'm getting nods. Looking down at my colleagues. Okay, I think we can move on to executive report.
Perfect, yes, I will go ahead and jump in. I first want to welcome, we have 3 amazing new interns, all UC Davis graduates. They're not here, but I know they're going to be watching. So that's Emma Godinez Mata, Jackie Welty, and Leo Hecht. We're just so happy to have them all here with us. And they're already making a lot of great contributions. At our last meeting, we had, as you know, some challenging conversations about the potential need to suspend service based on a lot of missed trips that we had been experiencing. I'm really happy to say that we're at a much better place now, and I know Julie is going to be sharing some updates on some of that. But since the board last met, that was in July, we've had, we're increasing our monitoring of on-time performance and missed trips, and very happy to see that we're, in pretty good shape there. We've brought RideCo, who's our Beeline provider, on site to retrain us and TransDev staff on making sure that we're using that app to its full potential, both for making sure we're booking trips, but also monitoring what's happening. That the trips are being met on time, and if there's preventable reasons that trips are not happening on time, that we are taking action to address that. I want to also note that we do have a need to recruit additional CAC members. We've had 1 CAC member officially depart and another member that is indicated he's ready to transition off the CAC. So actually our last 2 meetings did not take place due to last minute quorum issues. So that's a real disappointment. We wanted to get their input on the SRTP and on the Woodland transfer point, and we were not able to get their feedback because of a lack of quorum. So we're currently recruiting, and I would love your help. I'm going to be sending tomorrow an email to you as well as our CAC members asking for your help with getting the word out and recruiting new members. It's a great way for someone who's interested in public service that wants to build up their revenue, build their resumes, build up, their knowledge of how public processes work. So please help us spread the word and get more folks for our CAC. And lastly, as I already mentioned, we're going to be doing SRTP outreach over the next 4 to 6 weeks in your communities, and feel free to reach out to Brian or myself if you want additional detail on that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, great. And so, hoping to the very end, guys, I think. Okay. Now it's time for my fellow board members. Do we have any reports to share? Looking left and right. I'm seeing no. We've already heard from our executive director. It is actually time to hear from our TransDev report. And I believe we'll hear from Julie Holmes. Perfect.
So as Autumn was mentioning, we had 21 missed trips in June. I do not.
Do you want to go to the middle?
Sure.
Is that what you do? Oh, okay, thank you so much, Dr. Bernstein. She's quick. Yes, she is.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So as we had 21 missed trips in June, I can happily say that we've had we haven't had any missed trips due to shortage of operators. In August 4th, we had 3 missed trips due to shortage of buses. that day, unfortunately. Let's see, we have reached, agreement with ATU. So we have ratified a new CBA, that's gone into place. So that's really, really good. As of now, I am fully staffed as far as management. We just hired safety and training manager, an HR manager, and a maintenance manager. So I'm super excited about that. Current numbers and operators, 68. We have a new class starting on the 15th, so next Monday. We have approximately 10 people, starting in that class. We have a new bid that is going to be starting as well. And with that new bid will come the Beeline, the expansion of Beeline for, I want to say Fourth and Hope. And that'll be the end of
That will
December.
be good. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We appreciate your report. Okay, and finally, Director Bernstein, I don't know if you already talked about this, but long range calendar.
I did not.
Okay,
And
perfect.
Janine, if you can go ahead and pull up that slide, that'd be great. So for next month, we are going to be having our second of 3 budget workshops. This is the budget workshop where we're going to be talking about cost allocation. So you're going to be hearing from Chas all about that. So that should be a really interesting conversation. Please bring your questions about how do we allocate our costs across our different funding sources. We're also going to be having a workshop with you on our upcoming RFP for transit operations, which we are planning to release in December. As you know, Transit is on a 1-year contract extension. So we wanted to workshop with you to really help understand what the board's goals are and desires for the next transit operations contract and what we should prioritize. And then the staff's been working on an RFP for on-call consulting services. These are things that we need on a regular basis, but every time we have to procure them, we have to go get 3 quotes. And so by having an on-call, it'll allow us to have a bench and be able to just go directly to folks on that bench when we need something. In November, we're going to be getting an update on our Yolo commute and broader multimodal program, which Brian was alluding to today, but it's been a long time since we've actually given you a comprehensive update on all the things the multimodal program is doing. And a quarterly update on the YoloTD managed lanes. And then in December, this is kind of a big milestone. We will be asking for you to authorize the release of the RFP for the transit operations contract. Believe it or not, we've got to get it out by December to have a new contract in place by next August. And we'll also be presenting the draft final short range transit plan and appointing chair and vice chair for 2026. So it's going to be a doozy. Don't leave for the holidays early because you're not going to want to miss the December board meeting. It's going to be a big one.
Okay,
Thank you.
noted. Seeing that there is no further business to conduct, the meeting, oh, yeah, okay. Go back.
Couple things, probably public comment, maybe, I think that we need, but one other quick item, just, I would love to see if my colleagues agree about, a potential future item, on sort of just an update on staffing trends and challenges. I think that would be, we heard some, discussion of that in public comment this evening, so. Curious about sort of status around, and we heard from public comment and also trends and update, but I think like just, staffing trends and challenges, I think would be helpful. So.
Great.
Suggestion for a future meeting.
Okay, perfect. Anything else? I don't wanna. All right, and thank you so much for the reminder. Public comment.
Mentioning microphones for the home audience that are maybe watching. You're interns, right?
That's right.
Good. The executive director report, I want to note that we have 5 years worth of transit ridership in it. We've expanded that. That's a great improvement. I appreciate that. So it shows us pre-COVID versus the current ridership, which is really important to give people perspective because some people are relatively new on this board. I would encourage not just have 1 month, because some months have 4 weekends and 5 weekends, and some have 3 weekends. To normalize that, I think we cannot just have the given month, but maybe a 12-month running average. And then you can see what's going on, the real trend. That takes out the seasonality, and you seeing annual numbers versus monthly numbers. And also suggestion that we should have, if a missed drop route is really critical for your bus riders. we should be on town, on that, all of them. That should be part of the executive report. We should be tracking that. I see your progress on that. And again, the generic sort of thing, we need to have more quality metrics. I know you're working on that. I've been bugging you about that. So again, the squeaky wheel gets the oil, so more quality metrics. That might be an easy one to put in your monthly report. And Village Farms, the big development at the corner of Pole Line and Covell has come forward. And the bus routes are on Covell, but none of the housing is put on Covell. They put a park on Covell and a fire station. So instead of designing it as transfer development, they're making lots of density, but it's not where the transfer provider is, and far away from the shopping. So we really haven't gotten the message to the city and understand that density by itself does not create transit ridership and active mode. It's putting density near where the buses are and where the shopping is. And we really missed the boat there. I feel really sad that no one's done that. So, and I also note that F Street out of Davis has been repaved. I think I sent you pictures of that. Every 20 years repaving, and they didn't really widen it so there would be a safe bike lane. I don't know why we still, I mean, I know it overlapped with the active transportation, but basically that street should have been added 3 or 4 or 5 feet to it. So it really was a bus lane, because that's one of the 3 or 4 routes out of Davis to underway through Woodland. We really missed the bag on that. And by the way, I rode from San Francisco to Monterey, and it's wonderful ride, but there are some spots that are actually death-defying. It is really quite amazing. This is a coastal route, and there are spots where there's one spot, there's 300 yards where basically the 50-mile-an-hour traffic and there's no shoulder. It's just that's the only way you get there, unless you ride the freeway. So we have work to do. We should be on top of it. Safety is so important. So I hope maybe there's some safety qualities this you can put into your report too. So just thank you much for listening. Thank you for all your volunteer time, because you're all our volunteers in ultimately. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional public comment? Okay, I see one more.
Thank you. Want to just take this time to get some clarifying questions answered for the couple of items that were presented about the executive director's report and the long-range calendar. So earlier, as you know, in the meeting, there was consensus about Main Street between 5th and 6th in Woodland, and that's going to go to the council next Tuesday on the 16th. Does that then come back to this board on, I want to say, November 17th? Is that the correct date, or is it November 10th?
We have it as part of the short range transit plan in December. It could come back as a separate item if we think it merits that.
Okay, and then that does clarify or to clarify the question on the long range calendar. Is it correct on the website, or did I overlook something? The meeting in November is the 3rd Monday instead of the 2nd Monday?
That's correct. Thank you for flagging that. Because of Veterans Day, the meeting has been moved to the 3rd Monday in November.
Okay, yeah, wanted to flag that, so it's on the public record tonight. And if anyone, has to go back and look at their calendar, if there's a scheduling conflict, yeah, that there's a date change for the meeting in November. The other clarifying question I had is, you mentioned that there's going to be very soon some public outreach going on for the short range transit plan. Would Sacramento International Airport and downtown Sacramento be possible locations to have outreach meetings, since those are 2 key destination centers in Sacramento County and the city of Sacramento? Or would you like for the county and city of Sacramento to go to a workshop in West Sacramento instead? Okay, and then that was that was more or less my clarifying question on the upcoming outreach. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the public comment.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, I would like to clarify that the meeting for November has not changed. It has been it's been in our adopted calendar all year. So just want to be clear that it's changed from what our normal second Monday is, but it has been that way since we adopted the calendar.
All right, great. All right, with that, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm looking to my left, I'm looking to my right, making sure I didn't miss anything. No, okay, and seeing no other business, I will say we are now adjourning this meeting at 7:42 PM. Thank you so much.